took a solo trip to Colorado last October. I'd been drowning in work, the kind of burnout that makes you forget what day it is. I wanted to unplug, maybe write a little and get some quiet. That's when I stumbled across the Stanley Hotel. I knew about it. Of course, Stephen King's inspiration for The Shining. Old world architecture, and yeah, the ghost stories. But I've always been more of a skeptic. I figured if nothing else, it'd be peaceful, maybe even inspiring. I booked 2 nights in room 217. Not on purpose, really, it just happened to be available. When I mentioned it at check-in, the receptionist gave me this strange half-smile, like she'd heard the joke 1,000 times. "You're in for a memorable stay," she said, handing me the key. Not a key card, a real, old-fashioned brass key with a heavy tag that clinked against the counter. The place was beautiful. Classic wood panels, red carpets that whispered under your shoes, and chandeliers that cast soft yellow light across the lobby. Everything about it felt frozen in time. I remember walking the halls that first evening, hearing my own footsteps echo. There were moments where I thought I heard others behind me, but when I turned, the corridor was always empty. Room 217 was tucked at the end of a long, quiet hallway. The door creaked a little when I opened it, and the room had that scent old buildings always have. Part dust, part something floral you can't quite place. The windows looked out onto the mountains, and for a moment I forgot all about the stories. It was just peaceful. That first night I unpacked, answered a few emails, and watched the sky darken behind the peaks. No TV in the room, no distractions. Just silence and the low groan of wind brushing against the windows. I remember thinking how lucky I was to be there. Alone, away from everything, finally breathing again. If I had known what the second night would bring, I never would have stayed. I fell asleep quickly that first night. Maybe it was the altitude, or maybe it was just the relief of being away from people. I remember waking up once, probably around 3 in the morning, though I didn't check the clock right away. What woke me was a sound. Not loud but clear, water. At first I thought it was raining outside. But when I sat up and listened, I realized it was coming from inside the room. From the bathroom. It sounded like the faucet had been turned on. Just a slow, steady stream like someone was washing their hands. Still half asleep, I stumbled out of bed and made my way to the bathroom, assuming I'd somehow left the tap running. But when I turned the corner and flipped on the light, everything was dry. Bone dry. The faucet wasn't dripping. The sink was clean. No water, no puddle, no sound. But the mirror was fogged over, thick with condensation, as if someone had just taken a long, hot shower. I stood there for a moment, just staring at it. My first instinct was to check the shower. It was dry too. No heat, no steam, no reason for the mirror to be like that. That's when I noticed something in the fogged glass. It looked like a word, smudged, like someone had written it with their fingertip and let it fade. "Still here." I blinked, leaned in, and it was gone. Nothing but streaks in the condensation. I didn't panic, not then. I told myself maybe it was a leftover mark from a previous guest, or some trick of the light. I wiped the mirror clean, splashed cold water on my face, and told myself to go back to bed. But the thing is, I didn't fall asleep again. Not really. I laid there, eyes open in the dark, listening for anything, any sound at all. The wind tapped gently against the window pane. The floorboards in the hallway creaked once, maybe twice. And then, nothing. Silence can be comforting. But that night it felt wrong. Like someone was holding their breath just outside the room. I kept telling myself it was just an old building. That these kinds of noises were normal. That maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing, even the mirror. But deep down I felt it. That creeping feeling in your spine when you know something's off, even if you can't explain it. I closed my eyes and waited for morning. The next morning I tried to laugh it off. That's what we do, right? When something doesn't make sense, we file it under dreams or stress or the quirks of an old building. I took a shower, made some instant coffee, and tried to convince myself that nothing weird had actually happened. After breakfast, I decided to walk around the hotel. I had nowhere to be and I wanted to take some photos. The place is beautiful in a way that feels untouched. Wide halls with velvet chairs no one sits in anymore. Fireplaces that probably haven't been lit in decades. Portraits with eyes that seem to follow you just a little too closely. I wandered up to the second floor, supposedly one of the more active areas, according to the pamphlet in the lobby. I wasn't expecting anything. I just liked how quiet it was. I passed a couple of cleaning staff, but otherwise the hallway was mine. That's when I saw him. An older man, maybe in his 70s, standing near the end of the corridor. He wore a deep green hotel vest with gold trim and carried a small brass-handled cart. I assumed he was part of the staff. As I got closer, I nodded politely. He looked up at me and smiled. "You're in 217, aren't you?" he asked. I was caught off guard. I hadn't told anyone. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Just for a couple of nights." His smile didn't change, but something about the way he looked at me made me pause. There was kindness in his eyes, but something else too. Pity, maybe. "She's got moods," he said. "That room. Don't take her silence for peace." I opened my mouth to respond, but he was already moving past me, pushing the cart down the hallway. No explanation, no context, just that one line. When I turned around, he was gone. Not down the hall, just gone. There was no side door, no room he could have entered that fast. I stood there quiet for a long moment, trying to decide whether it had really happened or not. Later, back in my room, I searched online for the hotel's history. I didn't even know what I was looking for, just something to make sense of things. That's when I read about the explosion in room 217, 1911. A gas leak. A maid named Elizabeth Wilson had been thrown through the floor. She survived, but she kept working there until she died. Some people claimed she never really left. The articles all said the same thing. Lights turning on by themselves. Bags unpacked or repacked overnight, strange cold spots. Some guests said she was protective, especially towards solo travelers. Should have been comforting, but somehow it wasn't. That night, something felt different the moment I stepped into the room. Nothing had moved. The bed was still made. My backpack was where I left it, but the air felt heavier, like the stillness wasn't just silence, but something waiting. I kept the lights on, not all of them, just the bedside lamp. Enough to see the corners of the room, enough to feel less alone. I tried to sleep around 10. I laid on my side facing the window. I didn't check my phone. I didn't want distractions, just rest. Sometime during the night I had a dream, or maybe it wasn't. In the dream I was lying exactly where I was, same room, same position, but I wasn't alone. There was someone sitting in the armchair near the window, a woman. She looked old, not grotesque or monstrous, just old. Her face was pale and her hands were folded neatly in her lap. She wore a dress from another time. Victorian, maybe? Her posture was perfect. She didn't move. She just sat there watching me sleep. In the dream, I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. I wanted to sit up to turn on the light, but my body wouldn't respond. The only thing I could do was breathe, and even that felt shallow. I woke up with a start. My shirt was damp with sweat. The lamp was still on. I sat up and stared at the chair. Empty. But something was off. The cushion was slightly depressed, like someone had just stood up. Like it had been recently occupied. I tried to laugh. Told myself it was just a vivid dream. My body was reacting to the creepy stories I'd read earlier. Nothing more. Still, I walked to the bathroom to splash water on my face. I didn't turn on the overhead light, just the dim bulb above the mirror. And that's when I saw her. For a split second in the mirror, there was a reflection that didn't match mine. A figure standing behind me near the armchair. Just far enough back that I couldn't see her with my eyes, only in the glass. I spun around instantly. No one. When I looked back at the mirror, it was just me again. Just me in that quiet room. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat in the bed with the light on, listening to every creak of the building, every gust of wind outside the window. I wanted to believe it was just my mind playing tricks. That old buildings do weird things. That sleep paralysis and half dreams can feel real. But deep down, I knew better. Something had been in that room with me, and I had seen her. I spent most of that morning debating whether I should leave. I wasn't afraid exactly, just unsettled. The kind of unease that lingers in your chest no matter how many times you tell yourself, nothing's wrong. But I'd booked 2 nights and pride's a strange thing. I told myself it was just dreams. Just a cold draft and a tired mind. That evening, I walked down to the hotel bar. Had a drink. Watched the other guests. Some were laughing, some posing for selfies by the old staircase. None of them looked scared. No one seemed to sense the weight I'd been feeling in that room. I returned around 9. The hallway to my room was empty. My footsteps echoed more than they should have. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, trying not to hesitate. I left the lamp on and sat at the desk, flipping through an old guest directory someone had left behind. That's when the lights cut out. Not flickered. Not dimmed. Just gone. The room was suddenly swallowed in black. I froze. The hallway lights were still on. I could see their glow beneath the door. This wasn't a full power outage. Just my room. I sat still for a second, listening. Nothing, no wind. No voices. Just the hum of silence that somehow felt too loud. Then there was a knock. Not at the door. At the wall. 3 slow knocks. They came from the wall behind the bed. A solid, deliberate rhythm, like someone trying to get my attention. I stood up, fumbling for my phone to use the flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. Dead. It had been charging all day. The lamp flickered once, then came back to life. Dim at first, then steady. And that's when I saw it. There were 3 shadows on the wall. Mine, cast by the light behind me. One from the floor lamp. And one more, taller than me, still unmoving. But I was alone. I turned fast, my heart pounding, expecting what? I don't even know. There was nothing there. Just the chair. Just the wall. The 3rd shadow was gone. The lights stayed on after that. I didn't hear anything else. I didn't sleep. I laid in bed with the covers pulled up and my eyes fixed on the ceiling. Every creak made me flinch. Every draft across my neck felt like fingers. And the worst part? I started to wonder if the lights had gone out because she wanted them to. Like she was testing something. Measuring how long I'd stay quiet in the dark, and I had passed. It was my last night in room 217. I had already decided I wasn't staying past morning. My nerves were worn thin, and every creak, every gust of wind felt like it had a will behind it. But I told myself just one more night. Then I'd be out. I kept the lights on. All of them. I even let the bathroom door stay wide open, just so I wouldn't have to wonder what was on the other side of it. Around midnight, I heard something. Laughter. Not loud, not forced, just small, light. The kind of sound kids make when they're trying not to wake someone up. High-pitched giggles, followed by soft pattering footsteps, like someone running barefoot across hardwood. At first, I thought maybe another guest had let their children wander, but the sound wasn't distant. It wasn't muffled through walls. It was just outside my door. I sat up and held my breath. The laughter came again. Then footsteps. Faster this time. Then they stopped. Right outside room 217. I stood, walked to the door as quietly as I could, and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Completely. But I still heard breathing. Faint and low, like someone was just inches from the door. Then, a tap. Something soft tapped on the door right where my head was. I jumped back so fast I nearly tripped. I waited 5 seconds, 10, then slowly I opened the door. No one was there. But sitting in the hallway, directly in front of my room, was a small doll. Porcelain. Old. Its eyes were fixed forward, mouth slightly open. I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't brought it. And I know it hadn't been there when I came back from the bar earlier. I reached down and picked it up. The moment I did, I felt something sharp. There was a rusty pin sticking out of its back. I dropped it instantly, heart racing, and kicked it gently away from my door. I shut the door, locked it, and this time slid the desk chair under the handle. When I grabbed my phone to take a picture, it still wouldn't turn on. Fully charged just hours earlier, and now nothing. No light, no buzz. Just a dead screen. That night I heard voices. Low ones, not the children. Adults this time. Whispering on the other side of the wall. Too quiet to understand, but too clear to be the wind. It felt like they were arguing about me. And once, just once, I thought I heard my own name. I didn't open the door again. Not until morning. Morning came without warning. No sunrise through the curtains. No birdsong, just a dull gray light that bled through the clouds and painted the room in cold colors. I hadn't slept. Not really. I must have dozed off for a few minutes at a time, but each time I blinked awake, I felt more drained than before. My body was tense and my head buzzed like I'd been holding my breath all night. I packed quickly, shoved everything into my bag without folding it. I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to be out of that room, out of that building. As I zipped the bag closed, I glanced at the chair by the window. The cushion still looked slightly indented. I hadn't sat there once. I opened the door slowly, half expecting something or someone to be standing outside. But the hallway was still, that same velvet silence. The doll from the night before was gone. I walked fast, barely looking at the framed portraits on the wall. The elevator was slow, so I took the stairs, 2 at a time, not stopping until I hit the lobby. The front desk clerk was a different person than the one who'd checked me in. A woman, maybe in her early 50s, with a kind smile. She greeted me like everything was normal. "How was your stay?" she asked. I hesitated. Then I said, "Quiet." She nodded once, slowly, like she already knew. "You lasted longer than most solo guests in that room." She said it calmly, casually, as if it were nothing, like it was just a known fact around here. I didn't ask her what she meant. I didn't want to hear the answer. The moment I stepped outside, I felt like I could breathe again. The air was crisp, fresh, and real, like I hadn't taken a full breath in 2 days. I got in my car, started the engine, and didn't look back. It wasn't until I got home that I saw the photo. It was buried deep in my camera roll, time-stamped at 4:23 in the morning, around the time I'd last fallen asleep. It was a photo of me, lying in bed, taken from the corner of the room, from inside room 217. I live alone. I hadn't taken it. And that chair in the corner? It was empty in the photo, but the reflection in the window behind me wasn't. My name's Ethan Walker. I'm a part-time photographer, mostly landscapes, abandoned buildings, that kind of thing. I live just outside of Boulder, and I've always wanted to spend a few days at the Stanley Hotel, not because of the ghost stories. I've heard them all, but because the place has character. It photographs like something stuck between centuries. I booked 3 nights midweek to avoid the crowds. My plan was simple: get some quiet shots of the halls, the staircases, maybe catch the fog rolling off the mountains in the morning. Day 1 went just like I hoped. Crisp air. That eerie silence old buildings always have. I wandered the hotel for hours with my Canon and tripod. No one bothered me. That night I sat on the bed reviewing what I shot. I always go through photos before sleeping, clearing out the bad ones so I don't waste space. Most were standard: a grand chandelier, carved wooden trim, warped reflections in old glass. But then I found a picture I don't remember taking. It was a hallway, long and dim, lit by just a single sconce on the left wall. At first I thought I must have bumped the shutter accidentally, but then I looked closer. In the center of the hallway was a figure, dressed like me, same coat, same posture, same camera bag. It looked exactly like me. Walking away, I stared at it, trying to remember the moment, trying to place the hallway, but something was off. The shot wasn't at an angle I'd normally use, and I couldn't find it in my memory at all. No mirror, no reflective surface. It wasn't a selfie. Worse, there was no metadata, no timestamp, nothing in the file properties, just the image. I sat there for a long time, holding the camera in my lap, trying not to let my mind wander too far. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe I had taken it earlier and just forgot. Or maybe someone borrowed my camera for a laugh. A staff member, a guest. But then again, I hadn't let the camera out of my sight. And I never walked that hallway, not yet. The next morning I went looking for the hallway in the photo. I thought maybe it was one of those second-floor corridors I hadn't explored yet. Or maybe the far end of the West Wing. I knew the Stanley had odd architecture. Twists, additions, narrow connectors. But I figured I'd recognize the place when I saw it. I didn't. I walked floor to floor, checking each hallway against the photo on my camera. The color of the carpet was close in some places, but the wall trim, the lighting, it was never quite right. Almost, but not. Then something strange happened. After about 10 minutes of walking, I realized I hadn't passed another person. No housekeepers, no guests, no noise. Just that strange, soft creaking of old floorboards under my shoes. I kept moving forward, not thinking too much of it at first. But then I passed a framed painting I could have sworn I'd already seen. A snowy mountain, muted blue sky. I stopped. Turned around. The hallway behind me wasn't the same one I came from. The turns didn't match. There was no split in the walls. Just more hallway. I checked my phone. 9:23. I turned around again and walked forward for another 5 minutes, determined to reach a staircase or exit. Nothing. Just more hallway. Same wall sconces. Same faint hum in the walls, like a distant furnace running somewhere you can't reach. Then I noticed something worse. My door, room 212, was ahead of me. I'd just walked in a straight line for nearly 15 minutes, and somehow I was back at the same spot. No stairs, no turns. Just here. I stood still, camera in hand, trying to wrap my head around it. I even went back to the photo and tried to match lines on the wall. It didn't make sense. The hallway in the image didn't loop. It stretched. And in the photo, it looked longer than this, almost like it didn't have an end at all. I chalked it up to a trick of the mind. Maybe I took a wrong turn. Maybe I looped back without realizing it. That's what I told myself anyway. But something inside me, the quiet, primal part, was already whispering that it wasn't the hallway that looped, it was me. That night I tried not to look in the mirror. I know how that sounds. Childish even. But after spending the day walking in circles through halls that didn't add up, I started second-guessing the small things. The angles of doors, the slope of the floor, and especially my own reflection. The mirror in the bathroom wasn't anything special. Just an old rectangular slab of glass mounted over the sink. But something about it felt off the moment I turned on the light. My reflection moved like it always did, but just a hair behind. A hesitation, barely half a second, but I saw it. I stared at it for a long time, trying to catch it again. I turned my head side to side, raised my hand, blinked. It copied me perfectly. But then, just as I leaned forward to get a better look, it smiled. I didn't. It was subtle. Not a grin, not a full expression. Just the corners of its mouth twitching upward. A half smile, like someone trying to be polite in a conversation they didn't want to be part of. I stepped back so fast I bumped the doorframe behind me. I left the bathroom light on and threw a towel over the mirror. It sounds dramatic, I know, but I didn't want to see it again. Not that night. I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through old photos on my phone, just to ground myself. But even that didn't help. In one picture I'd taken in the lobby earlier, I noticed something strange in the glass frame of a painting. A face, not mine, not anyone around me, just watching. I turned off the phone and lay down, staring at the ceiling. The silence in the room was louder now. Not peaceful, not calm, just aware. There's something about reflections. They're supposed to confirm you're really there. That what you see is what's real. But that night I started wondering if maybe they don't reflect reality at all. Maybe they're watching, waiting for a reason to stop copying. I woke up to light coming from the wrong direction. The morning sun should have been on my left. Through the window near the bed, the one that overlooked the parking lot and pine trees. But today the light was coming from the opposite wall. There was another window, a tall, narrow one where there'd only been blank wall the day before. No curtain, no trim, just glass where there shouldn't be any. I sat up slowly. The light coming through wasn't warm like sunlight. It was pale and flat like the gray-blue glow of a television left on in an empty room. I got up and walked over, expecting maybe I'd misremembered. Maybe I hadn't paid enough attention the first night. But the closer I got, the stranger it felt. The frame was old, painted into the wall like it had always been there. But the view? It didn't match anything around the hotel. It wasn't the forest, or the mountains, or even the town below. It was a narrow alleyway between tall brick buildings. Wet pavement, fog clinging to the ground, a single flickering light on a wall with no signage. I opened the window. It creaked like it hadn't been touched in years. And as soon as I did, I heard it, voices, whispers layered on top of each other. Dozens of them. Male, female, young, old. Not angry, not loud, just constant. Like a room full of people all murmuring at once in a language I didn't recognize. I stepped back and shut the window. Hard. The sound stopped instantly. I stared at the glass for a long time, unsure of what I was supposed to believe. I even took a photo just to prove to myself it was real. Later that evening, I left the room for dinner. I didn't mention the window to anyone. I just needed space. I needed something normal. But when I came back around 10, it was gone. The wall was solid again. No frame, no glass, just painted wood paneling, smooth and uninterrupted. I checked the photo on my phone. The window wasn't there either. Just a photo of a blank wall. But I still remember the whispers, and I still remember that alley, because in the moment before I shut the window, I'm almost certain something on the far end of that alley turned to look at me. I've started losing time. It began subtly, just a blink that felt longer than it should. I'd close my eyes for a second, then realize the clock had jumped forward. 10 minutes. Sometimes more. I didn't fall asleep. I know what sleep feels like. This was different. Like stepping out of a room, then being dropped back in, slightly off balance. The first time it happened, I was sitting at the desk writing in my notebook. I blinked and suddenly the pen was capped and placed beside the pad. I didn't remember doing that. I hadn't even finished the sentence. Then the knocking started. It wasn't at the door. Not at first. It came from the closet. 3 slow knocks, then silence. I opened it. Nothing inside but my coat and camera bag. The next one came from under the bed. Same rhythm. I crouched and looked. Nothing there. And then, later that night, it came from above me. The ceiling. I didn't even bother checking that time. I just stared up at it and waited for it to stop. I told myself it was plumbing. Old pipes, wind. But then I blinked again. Just a normal blink. No tiredness, no yawn. But when I opened my eyes, my shoes were gone. I found them in the bathroom, soaking wet. The floor was dry. My socks dry. Just the shoes drenched, like I'd walked somewhere while I was gone. Later, I blinked again and found the mirror uncovered. I had wrapped it in a towel the night before, tucked it tightly into the corners. But there it was, exposed again. Just glass waiting. I didn't even bother recovering it. I just turned it toward the wall. Each time I lost time, something changed. Something subtle. Sometimes all the lights would be on, though I remembered turning them off. Sometimes the window was cracked open and I knew I hadn't touched it. It's not sleepwalking. It's not dreaming. Something's moving while I'm not. And I think whatever's knocking, it's just trying to keep me distracted long enough to get in. It started in the lobby. I was walking past a family taking pictures near the fireplace. 2 parents, a boy and a little girl. The mother raised her phone, smiled, and clicked. I barely noticed. But then the girl pointed at me as I passed. "Look," she said, tugging on her dad's sleeve. "That's the man who whispered to me." I froze. The dad chuckled awkwardly. "You probably saw him earlier, sweetheart." But the girl just kept staring at me. Not scared, just watching, like she recognized something I didn't. I went back to my room and tried to shake it off. Kids are weird. They say strange things. But something about her voice stuck with me. That evening, I reviewed photos I'd taken on the hotel's upper floors. Window frames, staircases, old carpeting. One shot showed a reflection in the glass of a picture frame. A man, blurry but visible, standing behind me. It wasn't my reflection. He was facing me. I zoomed in. Same height, same posture, same jacket, same me. But I didn't remember anyone standing behind me when I took it. The worst part came the next morning. I was leaving the elevator when a couple stopped me near the front desk. "Excuse me," the man said. "Were you just upstairs?" I told him no, I'd just come down. He turned his phone toward me. "We took a selfie outside room 319. You're in it." There I was, behind them, smiling. But I hadn't been to the 3rd floor. I checked the timestamp. It was taken 10 minutes before I got on the elevator. I'd been brushing my teeth in the bathroom, watching the light flicker above the mirror. It's not possible. I can't be in 2 places at once. But the photo said otherwise. Now when I pass mirrors, I look fast. I don't linger. I've started catching something in the corner of my eye, someone stepping just out of frame, someone wearing my face. I used to think the mirror just copied me. Now I'm starting to think it doesn't need me at all. I decided to leave. Not just the room, the Stanley entirely. I packed before sunrise. The bag felt heavier than it should, and I wasn't sure if it was the gear or something else. The mirror was still turned to the wall. I hadn't looked at it in 2 days. I should have left it that way. But right before I opened the door to go, I looked back. I don't know why. Maybe part of me wanted to prove it was all in my head, that it had never moved, never smiled, never followed. I turned the mirror around. For a second, everything looked normal. My reflection stood where I stood, moved as I moved, and then it blinked. I didn't. I felt it. My eyes were wide open, unblinking. But in the glass, I saw myself close them. Slow, intentional. It didn't copy me. It moved on its own. Then it smiled. Not subtle this time. Not polite. Wide and calm. Like it knew something was about to happen that I didn't. In the reflection, I watched myself walk to the door and open it. But I was still standing in front of the mirror. The door creaked open behind me. I turned. The hallway was there, but it wasn't the one I remembered. It was flipped, A mirrored version. Everything reversed. Even the paintings were backward, as if someone had built the hotel twice, once for us and once for them. And at the far end of the hall I saw movement. A figure, same height, same walk. It raised its hand slowly and waved. I shut the door. I don't remember checking out. I don't remember the drive home. But I woke up in my apartment the next morning. My bag still zipped. My shoes were soaked. My mirror's covered now. Has been since I got back. But sometimes just before sleep, I swear I hear footsteps from the other side of the glass. And every once in a while, it blinks first,